Can you believe it? We're in the full swing of summer, so it's another Q&A. The monthly Q&As I do, so I get to kind of talk about stuff I wouldn't talk about in normal videos. I get questions from you guys, and I get them from Patreon and YouTube membership people, as well as the comment section of this video. So for next month's Q&A, if you want me to answer something, just drop it in these comments. We're talking about the Flash, video game news topics I don't like, old games, of course, and a bunch more. So let's just jump in with the first question, shall we? Tibbs5254 asks, what are your opinions on the Evil Dead franchise? And do you think that a good survival horror game could come out of it? So Evil Dead, I really like. I'm not like a diehard. I haven't seen Ash versus Evil Dead, but I really like the original movies. I also just saw Evil Dead Rise, and I thought it was all right. I thought visually, atmospherically, it was incredible. It's just not something that has like a lasting impact on me, except for the end. But Evil Dead is a weird franchise, right? Because Evil Dead 2, and then Army of Darkness, each one is so distinctly different, and I think each one is equally awesome for a different reason. I like the early elements where it just felt like haunted house craziness, zaniness, absurdity, and then to Army of Darkness with the sense of adventure, them really embracing Ash as a badass and a comedic character, the slapstick nature of it. Like, I really like a blend of all of that stuff. I don't necessarily need it to choose like one or the other. Like, I just like when it's all crazy, all fun, all spooky, all wacky. If they can do it all, that's what I like. And there's been a lot of Evil Dead games, and to varying success. And I think necessarily I don't need a survival horror game to come out of Evil Dead, because I don't necessarily see Ash or an Evil Dead type person slowly walking down a hallway, managing resources, worrying about healing because a Deadeye could come around the corner and kill you. No, I kind of want something more like the feeling of like some crazy zany adventure as Ash with Army of Darkness, because I kind of really like Evil Dead for Ash, like, I'll admit it. I really like Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead for just embracing some of that craziness, but I like Ash. I just really like Bruce Campbell. It's hard to ignore. So I would love another like typical Ash adventure game, but if they were to do an Evil Dead game in the style of the newer movies where it's just, hey, new characters, new Evil Dead situation, I think it would make for a weird, interesting, experimental game. And maybe like sub survival horror is you trapped in a haunted house of horrors. Like when Ash is in the cabin and everything is going crazy around him. I would like to play that in video game form. Maybe that doesn't make for a 60-hour open world RPG or anything like that, but that's an experience I would like to see gamified in a way. That tension, but also that fun absurdity. Doomslayer 13470 says, what are some of your favorite co-op games? For me, my favorites are Deep Rock Galactic, Vermintide 2, Helldivers, Call of Duty Zombies. I don't talk about Deep Rock Galactic enough, but when it was early access, I did really like it. I can see you're very into a co-op shooter type thing in terms of that, because I just can't help but only talk about old games. Army of Two, those games are so fun co-op. Holy shit. That, and also I played a lot of Rainbow Six Vegas, Resident Evil 5 I played through cooperatively the first time I played it, and that was a really fun way to experience it with like another diehard Resident Evil fan by my side. Shout out Andrew. I also always like opt for like Nintendo experiences with friends. That's not always cooperative though, but man, Haze Light, in terms of modern experiences, Haze Light is what I go to for co-op stuff. I know they only come out with a game every couple of years, but I've absolutely been loving what they've been doing. They did Brothers, but then I really, really liked A Way Out and It Takes Two for not just being a cooperative experience, but like one that thinks outside the box and doesn't necessarily keep you in the same type of gameplay loop for the entire game. It's constantly refreshing the experience because it almost like understands that you're in a room or you're online with someone else and you guys can easily get distracted talking or yapping about something where the game wants to keep your attention. And so it does that by having a compelling story, vibe, characters, but changing up the gameplay scenarios enough to keep you on your toes and keep you working with your cooperative friend. It's just so creative. I could just go on and on about Haze Light. I love their shit. But yeah, that's my answer really more than anything. Every time like there's a new Haze Light joint, I'm like itching for it and I can't wait to play through it. I played through through It Takes Two like twice. Like I'm gushing enough. That Freaking Geek says, PlayStation Showcase finally gave us our first look at Spider-Man 2 gameplay. What are you hoping for the most that this game will achieve, such as gameplay, story beats, villains, etc.? So I did make a whole video a while back when Spider-Man 2 was announced, like what I would want from it, you know, a little bit more to the swinging. But what I harped on in that video, and I'll harp on here, is that I really, really hope the story has as much impact as Spider-Man PS4 did. And Miles, definitely, but specifically Spider-Man PS4 with the Aunt May moment, and just with them really understanding and telling a good Spider-Man story. Not just one that like emulates the movies or anything like that, but just like a real genuine feeling Spider-Man story that understands Peter Parker and his struggles and all that. Like, I would just love to see them continue to do that, and it seems like they're doing that with him having the symbiote. So sick just hearing him do the voice. Get back here, shocker! Like, I'm so glad that Yuri Lowenthal is kind of going for that type of thing, but I'm still hoping like everything wraps up nicey nice, or there's a point in the game where I can just be actual friendly neighborhood Spider-Man just swinging around, you know? The thing I'm most excited about as a New York person, I live outside of the city, but seeing Queens and Brooklyn represented in a game, a modern game, would be really, really cool, because I think a lot of media has portrayed those places as one way, but they are very different now in certain aspects, and really, there's a lot of Queens that people haven't seen in the mainstream shown as much, and I really would like to see that. Now, Clay Italian 9091 says, to keep your tradition of bringing up Batman going. Yeah, at every Q&A, I either always mention like the DeLorean, the car, or Batman. So they ask, does it bug you that Warner Brothers chose to bank on nostalgia by bringing back Michael Keaton as Batman instead of giving us, like, say, Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne, aka Flashpoint Batman? Don't get me wrong, it's fun to see Keaton again, but I feel robbed of an amazing performance. And then, of course, the whole Flashpoint story beats that come with Thomas Wayne being in it, to summarize. Just be warned for this, slight spoiler warning. I'm not going to go into everything, but yeah, spoiler warning for The Flash. And so, yeah, let's just talk about The Flash then, I guess. I didn't make a whole video on this. I was thinking about doing it, but I don't know. It's like, it's been a very divisive movie, and I almost don't want to hear it, but I had a good time. I absolutely acknowledge all of the faults that the movie has. The bad CGI, some of the messy plot points. Yeah, there's a lot, but I just found myself still at the end of the day thoroughly entertained. I also really do like Flashpoint, and I thought this was a good kind of casual digestion version of Flashpoint with elements that are already familiar to audiences. Did I want it to center around Zod coming to Earth again? No, not really. But the biggest thing for me as a Batman person, the Michael Keaton stuff I actually really liked. And I liked it enough that I still miss, like, especially specifically the ending of Flashpoint, how that all works with the Batman and Barry. So powerful. So I miss that here. But I think what we got was still a good emotional resolution with Barry himself, with his mother. Very simple, tastefully done with the can of tomatoes. Like, I just like simple storytelling like that. But for me, it was Michael Keaton. Like, I thought it was, like, obviously, like, there's some weird music choices here and there, and like it's like a little more lighthearted, but I still liked what they did with Michael Keaton here. He looks really good in the Batsuit still. And, you know, when there wasn't wonky CGI, like, I was convinced that he was still in the suit and still capable, and it didn't feel sad or pathetic. It didn't harp on anything. You know, he had, like, I don't know, the Batman stuff for me, like, I thought it was fairly well represented. I don't know. It was nice to see him. Is it absolutely pandering, nostalgia, whatever? Yeah, but it didn't feel as shitty as it could. I guess the thing with me is that I went into The Flash with very low expectations, and I liked how they handled certain things. Even the cameos, the multiverse cameos, as CGI laden as they were, it just worked for this type of story to see some of those people. When the Nick Cage Superman showed up, I thought I was losing my goddamn... Well, first Jay Garrick, that was crazy, but then Nick Cage... Well, first of all, I saw long-haired Superman, and then I saw it fighting a giant spider. And as like a light Kevin Smith nerd, I was like, is this happening? Am I insane? What is happening? I was like really freaking out. I was just into it. I was in the theater. I was having fun. I was absorbed. Yeah, after the honeymoon period, I get some of the criticism, but I had a lot of fun. In terms of why it bombed, why this movie is failing, I don't know. Is it superhero fatigue? Are people sick of, like, The Snyderverse stuff? I don't know. I don't think so. Is it the Ezra Miller stuff? Because obviously Ezra Miller is convicted and is seemingly doing not good things. Is it that controversial? I don't know. It could be anything. Is it the DC universe kind of sort of being rebooted? Is that people's concern why they didn't even bother to show up for this? I don't know. I think my big thing was like, wait, this didn't really reboot anything. At least in my mind, it just kind of like was a story and it ended. He didn't leave a hole like in the universe or anything like that. I mean, things are a little different now, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I think maybe that's it though. I think when there's like news of like a new universe coming, some people, I guess like the hardcore fun audiences that go see every Superman movie or every superhero movie rather, aren't going to give a shit about like the last gasps, so to speak. Like I will say for me personally, I'm not excited about like Aquaman 2 and I love the first Aquaman. I don't know. There's just something in the air right now, but I'm still looking forward to seeing what James Gunn does, whatever down the line. We can get into that whole thing, but I've taken too much of your time with this question. Hey, and now before we keep going, just want to let you guys know this video is sponsored by Factor. Are you hungry? Factor delivers fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep, and they make life easy. With work and stuff, I'm not always the best at getting ahead of like my diet and what I'm going to eat the next day. So Factor has really helped me cut down on fast food and quick eats because they show up and they're fresh and they're nutritious. They actually taste really good and they heat up in the microwave in minutes. So it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to know how to be a master chef for this. So I'm not losing any time meal prepping or shopping for groceries. I am just good to go here and I feel good afterwards. I'm actually eating a Factor meal right now while I was making this because I got really hungry. Excuse me. They offer keto, calorie smart, chef's choice, and vegan and veggie options, which include seafood, meat, and plant-based meals. So there's a lot of choices for ways to eat right and feel good. So if you're like me, after talking about food right here, you're hungry, all you got to do to check this out is head to factor75.com. When you're there, you can use code ONJAKE50 for 50% off your first Factor box. It's a good hookup. You're eating on me. So once again, factor75.com. Use code ONJAKE50, and big thanks to Factor for sponsoring these videos. Laffy Flaffy says, do you think Collectathon games will make a comeback in the future? Fingers crossed that a traditional Banjo-Kazooie will get another installment. I think so. I think the biggest thing that we have to do now, because I think collectathons were great when it was like just the novelty of being in a video game and having so much fun. It was a new world. It was a quirky character. The graphics were three-dimensional or the graphics were really good. There was always some sort of hook to keep us around where I think now modern audiences do demand a little more. So I think if there's some more creativity to the actual collecting, that would be pretty good. I would like to see that. Granted, as someone who is still used to those games and doesn't like expect too much, I'm happy for a straight up simple old school style collectathon. And yeah, I think Banjo-Kazooie is like the obvious one. It seems like Rare very much now wants to do different things. They are past that. They are beyond that. There are probably many different people working there, but I think somebody could take the reins on a game like that. That's like a good IP. That's a good little brand. It's a guy with a little bird. Like, I mean, it sells. For me though, if we're talking collectathon, like, I mean, the original Jak and Daxter was very collectathon. So this is just a good segue for me to say, bring back Jak and Daxter. How many times have you heard any of us say that? Infinite Dingers asks, howdy Jake, if you were to make a top 10 list of video game discussion topics you'd wish go extinct, what would be some for you? The console wars. I've talked about this before. I think there is still something that needs to be discussed with console stuff. Exclusivity, how the different corporations handle stuff, competition, obviously. But I think so often it just gets into Mets versus Yankees or Jets, like just that tribal, awful, toxic shit. So like, I've said this before, but I wish some of that console war topic stuff would go away. You may not be happy with how I laid that out, but I did in the last Q&A, I believe, talk about that more if you want me to go a little more in depth. But also, there's something like if you're really online, if you're really into gaming news and stuff, like on Twitter or something like that, I don't like debate, like reviews for a game come out, but the game isn't actually out yet. And people are tearing each other to pieces in arguments about the reviews, and it's critical analysis of games that like many people haven't even played yet. So like, how can you get riled up about a review or die on a hill about a game review when the game isn't even out to the public yet and like nobody's touched it? I don't know, that's my thing. Like, I feel like I've gotten into those arguments before and I'm like, wait, did you even play the game yourself yet or anything? A lot of those just I don't find productive or add any value or fun fun or color to like the world of video games. I don't know. I think ultimately with the video game topics, is my bottom line is just like everybody's annoying. Stop being annoying. But no, in all seriousness, I think that sometimes the conversations can get so mired and weird and convoluted and complex and shitty that it actually distracts from the good quote unquote negative conversations we have to have. Like when everybody riled behind Battlefront 2 and how bad the microtransactions, like those kind of bigger consumer battles and those conversations are necessary. So focus on those. When you get riled up about other shit in games that doesn't matter, then we lose focus, then we lose sight on like the actual important consumer discussion stuff. You know what I mean? QWERTY-ish says, I wanted to ask, let's say the next mainline Grand Theft Auto game isn't based off of a United States city and instead goes international. Where would you like to see the game take place? London, the easy answer for me. I just think there's a lot of potential there. As someone who really loved The Getaway, I would just like to see Rockstar's take on that. And I would love to see Rockstar, who very much wears their influences on their sleeve. You know, they are clearly inspired by movies, pop culture. I would love to see their take on a Guy Ritchie, you know, Snatch or Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels type of deal. I think that would be really cool and a good faithful throwback because in the 90s, Rockstar did GTA London. They also did an Italian Job game. So like there's a lot of international flavor to their games that I would love to see, considering like a lot of Rockstar's roots are in Europe. Jordan Maiden 0073 says, as a fellow James Bond fan, I'd love to hear your favorite James Bond game that's not GoldenEye, favorite Bond movie, and some quick thoughts on what you hope to see in IO's Bond game. Whew, that's a lot to tackle at once. So let me just jump in first. My favorite Bond movie is really, that's hard, man. I actually think it's GoldenEye and Casino Royale. I really don't like a lot of Roger Moore stuff. That's like my only thing. But I also really have a sweet spot for Her Majesty's Secret Service. There's something about that one that just like kicks ass. Anyway, each one of these topics is prime for its own video. Specifically, my favorite Bond game. It's Everything or Nothing, and I've been dying to make a video on that. It had a good song. It had like famous people in all the roles. The villain was Willem Dafoe. The Bond villain was Willem Dafoe. And no one gives a shit. I still tell people that to this day who never played it, and they're like, wait, really? Yes. Are you kidding me? And it's a third-person Bond adventure. You're running around as Pierce Brosnan, shooting people, getting into car chases, driving a high-tech motorcycle. There are some incredible sequences in that game that I am sure are just up in my mind and have not aged well because I haven't played it in like many years, but there was something about that game, man. It just really encapsulated a great Bond adventure. It understood it, but it knew it was a video game too, so it was dumb. But it took Pierce Brosnan Bond and ran with it. And I love that. And then in terms of IO's Bond game, the people behind Hitman and Freedom Fighters and many other things are making a Bond game. They're doing their own thing. They said they're making a new Bond. So from that, I don't know. I just kind of want to see what they're going to do with it. If it's a new Bond, the sky is the limit as far as I'm concerned. Go bold. You can either be completely different and make it interesting, or you can do a character that kind of is like a celebration of all these little great Bond things from the decades. Like there's so much that they could do. I would love to see them at the very least maybe set it in a different time period, you know? Like what if we saw a Bond in the 60s, 70s that isn't Sean Connery? Is that okay? Is that legal? I don't know, but there's a lot of potential there, and I do not envy anybody being in that position because those are big decisions, and I would be really indecisive. And Andrew Wilson 4998 says, this is kind of from left field, but I've heard a lot of people talking about having a true to form Guitar Hero reboot. I personally would love to see this happen and think others would too. I was wondering if you ever think about something along those lines. Yes, absolutely. And they've tried kind of, but I think there needs to be like a good, strong resurgence, and I think it can work. But there's one thing that I just want to say with this that I think is really valuable from those games. It's the same with people who experience games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Those types of games expose people to music that they otherwise may not have heard. I can't think off the top of my head, but like the Guitar Hero Rock Band games like have exposed me to so many like obviously it's a lot of popular mainstream songs throughout rock, but things here and there that like I just never listened to, like all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, this is a good song. Girlfriend by Matthew Sweet. Like I just random shit off the top of my head. Like I think those games need to exist Even games like Tony Hawk need to exist, or other games that just embrace licensed tracks because they'll expose people to music they otherwise wouldn't have heard. Even different genres, different time periods. And I think that's important. So like that's more than anything why I really want those games back. Yeah, Through the Fire and Flames, great, fun, but actually discovering that song Through the Fire and Flames is like half the fun. And Fogel11, thank you for the kind words. They ask, I know you love Mass Effect. It's my favorite video game series. What are some things you hope to see in the next one? For me, I think really it is morality systems and choices and decisions. I like that stuff. Just give me that old school BioWare goodness. I would love a little bit more depth and layers to the morality system, but I talk about those a lot. You know, Paragon, Renegade, I would love to just see them embrace more of that. But also, again, and they did it with Andromeda, even if it didn't land, but like, I still think it's important to just have a good crew. Good, memorable characters that hop on board for your journey, that you gather up throughout the game. I like that. That's the biggest thing for me. Also, just don't screw it up. I don't know, but that's been a Q&A. I gotta go. I've kept you guys for too long. Thank you very much for swinging around here. Thank you if you click on the sponsor or anything like that. It does help out this channel very much, but I definitely want to know what you guys think about some of my out there weird answers, but also, again, don't forget to leave some of your own questions for stuff for the next video. Anything you've ever wanted me to talk about. Anything. Not really anything. There's a lot of things I don't want to talk about, but seriously, let me know. Hit me up. I'm Jake Baldino. Thank you guys for listening. If you like what I'm doing here, I'm just talking about stuff I love, clearly, with this video. Clicking the like button helps me. Thank you. But see you guys next time. Pizza's on me. Subscribe because video games.